When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. It wasn't a cruel smile. It wasn't even a happy one. It was just empty. The kind that comes when you've used up every last bit of fight inside you. She stood there in the doorway of what used to be my kitchen, her arms crossed. The morning light was bright behind her, making her look like a silhouette. A shadow telling me my time was up. "We're going tomorrow, Mom. I've sold your beach house." Her voice was flat, a statement of fact, like she was telling me the weather. And I just stood there, my hands still wet from washing the breakfast dishes. I looked at her, then past her, to the little ceramic seagull on the windowsill. A souvenir from that very beach house, a lifetime ago. I felt a strange calm, a quiet shattering, deep in my chest, where no one could see it. But what she didn't know was, I already knew. I had known for a week. The papers had come in the mail by mistake. I had held them in my hands, the cold legal words blurring. Liquidated asset, vacate premises. My little piece of the sea, my only piece of peace. Gone, with a signature that looked so like my son's. I didn't say any of that. I just nodded. And I smiled that empty smile. Because sometimes, the biggest storms don't make a sound. They just happen inside you, turning everything you knew upside down, while you stand perfectly still, drying a plate. My name is Evelyn, but for the last 30 years, most people have just called me Mom, or Nana. This story starts, I suppose, not with that moment in the kitchen, but years before, in a different home, filled with different sounds. It was a small house, but it felt big with life. My husband, Robert, was a quiet man, a teacher. He loved history books and making terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings. We had one son, David, our David. He was all sunshine and scraped knees, with a laugh that could make you forget any worry. Our world was simple. It was packed lunches and parent-teacher meetings. It was saving loose change in a jar for our dream, a little cottage by the beach, a place to grow old watching the waves. We saved for 15 years. Every tax return, every bit of overtime. Finally, we bought it. It wasn't much, a weathered wooden box, really, perched on a dune. The roof leaked in one corner when it rained hard, but it had a porch that faced the endless blue. That was our piece of heaven. Robert called it our soul's anchor. Then the anchor slipped. Robert got sick. It was a word we whispered at first, then a word that filled every room. Cancer. It was fast. It was brutal. And then it was over. My quiet man, my history reader, was gone. The house felt cavernous with silence. David was in college then. He tried to come home every weekend, but I could see the grief in his eyes, mixed with the fear of seeing me so lost. It was David who pulled me through. He'd call every night. "Just checking in, Mom." He'd bring his laundry home just to have an excuse to sit with me. And it was David who insisted I keep the beach house. "Dad's dream, Mom. You have to keep it. For you. For us." So I did. I'd go there on the first weekend of every month. I'd sit on that porch, with a blanket and a book I never read. I'd just watch the water. It was where I could still talk to Robert, where the loneliness felt like a choice, not a sentence. Life slowly found a new shape. David graduated. He met a girl named Chloe at his first job. She was sharp, beautiful, with ambitions as clear as glass. She knew what she wanted from life. A part of me admired that. David was smitten. He glowed around her. When he asked if she could move in with him, into our old family home, I said yes without a thought. I wanted him happy. I moved into the smaller downstairs bedroom, happy to make space for his new beginning. The wedding was small and lovely. I remember holding Chloe's hands at the rehearsal dinner. Her hands were cool and smooth. "I'll take care of him, Evelyn," she said. And I believed her. I truly did. Soon, They were talking about a family. My heart leapt at the idea of a grandchild. The house would be full of noise again. When my grandson Leo was born, it was like the sun came back. He had his father's eyes. I would spend hours just holding him, breathing in that baby smell. It felt like a promise. A new chapter. Chloe went back to work quickly. She was a rising star at her marketing firm. It was natural then for me to help more. I became the daytime caregiver for Leo. I loved it. It gave me a purpose, a schedule. We'd go to the park. We'd read the same picture book 10 times in a row. I felt useful. I felt needed. That's how our new normal was built. Me, the quiet background support. Them, the bright young family moving forward. I cooked the meals I knew David liked. I tidied up. I looked after Leo. I thought I was weaving myself back into the fabric of a family. I didn't see that. To them, I might have just been a thread, a useful one, but one that could be trimmed. 2,500 word. The first crack was so small I almost missed it. It was a Thursday. I had made a pot roast, Robert's old recipe. The house smelled of warmth and herbs. David was late from work. Chloe was on her laptop at the dining table, typing fast. "Something smells. Heavy," she said, not looking up. I paused, the ladle in my hand. "It's pot roast. David's favorite. He's trying to cut back on red meat, Evelyn," she said, her eyes still on the screen. We talked about it. Healthier choices. I hadn't been part of that talk. I stood there, feeling suddenly like I'd done something wrong. "Oh," I said. "I didn't know." "It's fine," she said, finally glancing at me with a tight smile. Just for next time. That was it. Just for next time. But it felt like a gentle door closing. My recipes, my way of caring, were becoming outdated. A relic. The next times started adding up. I'd buy the sugary cereal David loved as a boy. Chloe would quietly put it on the top shelf and give Leo oatmeal. I'd want to watch an old movie together. They'd be busy with a work call or a podcast. My stories about Robert, about the past, would get a polite nod. Then the subject would change to future plans. Their plans. I started hearing pieces of conversations, never whole ones, just fragments that floated down the stairs or from behind their closed bedroom door. Need to think about a better school district. This house is too cramped for the long term. Mom's stuff is everywhere. I'd freeze, a dishcloth in my hand, listening to the muffled tones. Then I'd shake my head. I was being silly, paranoid. This was my family. But the air in the house changed. It became thinner, harder to breathe. I found myself trying to make myself smaller, taking up less space, speaking less. I'd retreat to my room early, just to give them their family time. I'd hear them laughing downstairs, and a strange ache would fill me, a longing to be included, mixed with the fear of intruding. One afternoon, Leo, who was 3 then, was building a tower with blocks. He was getting frustrated, his little face scrunched up. "Here, sweetheart, let Nana help," I said, reaching to steady the block. "No," he said, pushing my hand away. "Mommy says I have to do it myself. I have to be dependent." "Independent, honey." Chloe's voice came from the doorway. She leaned against the frame, smiling at him. "Good boy." She looked at me. "We're encouraging problem-solving, Evelyn. It's important for his development." My hand hung in the air for a second before I pulled it back to my chest. It felt like a slap. I was just trying to help. But now, even my help was wrong, was hindering him. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home. I'd move through the rooms, touching the familiar furniture, but feeling invisible. My opinions were no longer asked for. My routines were gently, firmly corrected. I was living by their rules, in a home that once held my own. The beach house became my only escape. My monthly weekends there were my oxygen. I'd drive down on a Friday, and for 2 days, I could breathe. I could leave a book on the table. I could make toast at midnight. I could be me. I'd always invite them. The sea air is good for Leo, I'd say. The answers were always kind, but firm. Maybe next month, Mom. Work is crazy. Leo has a birthday party. We're just so tired, Evelyn. So I went alone. And I'd call David every evening from the porch. How's the house? He'd ask. Quiet, I'd say. The waves are loud tonight. There'd be a pause. I could hear the TV in the background. That's nice, Mom. Listen, I've got to go. Chloe's got a presentation tomorrow. Love you. Love you too, son. I'd hang up and watch the endless, dark ocean. The distance between us felt wider than the water in front of me. Then the money talk started. Not with me. Around me. David looked stressed one night over dinner. Chloe was rubbing his back. It's just a lot, with the new car payment, and the daycare bills, and the property taxes on 2 places. My fork stilled. 2 places. My beach house was now a property. A bill. A burden. We'll figure it out, Chloe said softly, her eyes meeting mine for just a second. It wasn't a friendly look. It was a measuring one. I looked down at my plate. That night, for the first time, a cold, clear thought formed in my mind. It was a thought so terrible I tried to shove it away. But it sat there, heavy and dark. I am a burden. My love, my presence, my little piece of heaven, it was all just a line item on their spreadsheet. A problem to be solved. The turning point didn't come with a shout. It came in the mail. It was a Tuesday. The house was empty. Leo was at preschool. Chloe and David were at work. The mailman came, and there was a thick, official-looking envelope. It was addressed to the estate of Robert Miller at this address. My heart skipped. Robert had been gone for over a decade. It was probably just some final, tiny piece of bureaucracy. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was from a title company. At the top, it said sale of property. My eyes scanned the page. It listed the address of the beach house. The buyer's name was a corporation I didn't recognize. The seller's name. My breath left my body. It was David's name. His signature. Bold and confident. The papers slipped from my fingers, fluttering to the floor like dead leaves. I sank into the kitchen chair. The room was silent, but a roar was filling my ears. I felt dizzy. He had sold it. My beach house. Robert's dream. Our soul's anchor. He had sold it without a word to me. I sat there for an hour. Maybe 2. I didn't cry. I was too deep in shock for tears. I just stared at the wall, at the photo of David as a boy, grinning on that very beach. The betrayal was so complete, so cold, it felt surreal. How long had they planned this? Had they sat at this very table, after I went to bed, and discussed it? Had David looked at those papers, pen in hand, and thought of me? Had he hesitated? I thought about calling him right then. Screaming, demanding, but a deep, tired numbness had set in. What was there to say? The action was done. The signature was dry. He had chosen his wife, his new life, his financial ease, over a piece of my soul. I picked up the papers. I folded them neatly. I put them back in the envelope. I hid them in the bottom of my sewing basket. I didn't say a word. For a week, I walked through my life like a sleepwalker. I made meals. I played with Leo. I smiled. But inside, I was in a frozen, silent place. I watched my son. I studied his face, looking for the boy I knew. He seemed the same. Loving, busy, distracted. He didn't look like a man who had just broken his mother's heart. That was the worst part. He had no idea of the earthquake inside me. Then, the morning came. The morning from the beginning of my story. I was washing the dishes. The sun was streaming in. Chloe came into the kitchen. She was dressed for work, sleek and efficient. She didn't beat around the bush. "Evelyn, we need to talk." I turned off the water, drying my hands slowly on a towel. Of course, dear. We're going away tomorrow. For a week. A sort of reset. We've rented a cabin. That sounds lovely, I said, my voice strangely calm. And while we're gone, she continued, her gaze steady, unblinking. The new owners of the beach house will need access. For an inspection. So we've taken care of it. She paused, perhaps waiting for a reaction. I gave none. We're going tomorrow, Mom. I've sold your beach house. There it was. She said it. She called me Mom, but it was she who was delivering the news, not David. My own son hadn't even had the courage to look me in the eye and tell me. I looked at her, this woman who had taken my son and was now erasing my past, and I smiled. It was all I had left, a mask to cover the desolation. She seemed confused by the smile. She faltered for a second. It was just sitting there, Evelyn. We needed the equity. For Leo's future. For our future. It was the practical thing to do. Practical. The word hung in the air between us, killing every memory, every feeling attached to that place. I understand, I heard myself say. And in a way, I did. I understood everything now. David, he wanted to tell you. But he didn't want to upset you. He thought it would be easier this way. Easier for whom? I thought. But I just nodded. She looked relieved, as if a difficult task was over. She touched my arm, a brief, dry touch. We'll talk more when we get back. We can help you sort through anything you left there. And then, she was gone, her heels clicking down the hallway. I stood in the silent kitchen. I looked at my hands, wrinkled, spotted with age. These hands had built a life, had held a husband, had raised a son, had rocked a grandson, and now they felt useless, empty. The tears didn't come then, either. They were buried too deep. All I felt was a final, quiet snap. The last thread holding me to this version of my life had broken. They left the next morning. David hugged me goodbye. It felt stiff. He couldn't meet my eyes. Love you, Mom. We'll be back next Sunday. Have a good trip, I whispered into his shoulder. I watched their car disappear down the street. The house was profoundly, overwhelmingly silent. It was a silence I had feared for years after Robert died. But now, it felt different. It wasn't a lonely silence. It was a clear one, a decision. I went upstairs to their room. Not to snoop, not to be angry. I just needed to see. I opened David's side of the closet. There, on the shelf, was a small, locked metal box. I knew where the key was. In the little ceramic dish shaped like a frog that he'd had since he was 7. Some things a mother never forgets. My heart was pounding as I opened it. I felt like a thief. But I needed the truth. The full truth. Inside were the papers. The full contract for the sale of the beach house. The price was much higher than I'd imagined. There were also brochures for new, large houses in a distant upscale suburb, flyers for a prestigious private kindergarten for Leo, and a printed spreadsheet. A budget. My eyes ran down the numbers. My name was on it. Under monthly outgoings, it listed estimates for my food, my share of utilities, potential future medical costs. Next to it was a column titled Asset Liquidation, Beach House. The profit from the sale was highlighted. A line was drawn from that profit, covering my column of costs, with an arrow pointing to the new house down payment and the kindergarten fees. It was all there, in black and white. I had been liquidated, turned from a person into a number. And that number had been traded for a better school and a bigger garage. I didn't feel anger then. I felt a sad, soaring clarity. This wasn't about me being a bad mother. This was about them building a life, and I was a log in the path. They hadn't moved the log with cruelty. They had done it with spreadsheets. To them, it wasn't heartless. It was logical. That somehow hurt more. I put everything back exactly as it was. I went to my room. I pulled out my own small suitcase, the one I used for the beach. I didn't pack much, just some clothes, my toothbrush, the photo of Robert and me on our wedding day, and the ceramic seagull from the windowsill. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't be here when they returned. I couldn't live inside their spreadsheet. I couldn't smile that empty smile anymore. I wrote a letter. It was short. David, I found out about the beach house a week ago. I found the papers today. I saw the budget. I understand your logic. I hope the new house and the new school bring you all the happiness you are looking for. Please don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I need some time. Give Leo a kiss from Nana. I love you. I always will. Mom, I left it on the kitchen table, under the salt shaker, so it wouldn't blow away. I got in my old car. I drove. I didn't drive to the beach house. That was gone. I just drove away from the city, toward the hills. I found a small, quiet motel by a lake. I rented a room for a week. I paid in cash from my meager savings. For the first 2 days, I did nothing. I slept. I stared at the lake. I let the numbness hold me. On the 3rd day, I cried. I cried for Robert. I cried for the little boy who used to laugh in my kitchen. I cried for the loss of my home, twice over. I cried until I was hollowed out. And in that hollow space, a small, quiet strength began to grow. It was a tiny seed. The seed of what next? I was still here. I was alive. My story wasn't over just because someone else had decided to turn the page. I called an old friend from my teaching days, Clara. We hadn't spoken in years, but her voice was warm as ever. I told her everything, my voice shaking. She didn't offer advice. She just listened. Then, she said, "Evie, come stay with me for a bit. The guest room is full of yarn, but we can clear a space." That invitation was a lifeline. I drove to Clara's the next day. She lived in a cozy apartment in a town 2 hours away. She made me tea and didn't ask any hard questions. She just let me be. Her kindness was a balm. A week after I left, my phone buzzed. It was David. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails full of panic and confusion. I listened to them. His voice was strained, desperate. "Mom, where are you? We're back. Please call me. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. The sorry felt too late. The damage was done." But hearing his fear, his genuine distress, I knew his heart wasn't entirely made of stone. He had just gotten lost. Lost in a new marriage, in pressure, in a version of success that had no room for sentiment. I waited a day. Then I texted him. "I am safe. I am with a friend. I need some time. I will call you soon." His reply was instant. "Please, Mom. Please call. I love you." The "I love you" still meant something. It was tangled in hurt, but it was real. Clara helped me find a lawyer, a kind, older woman who specialized in elder affairs, not to sue David, but to understand my rights. The beach house money, it turned out, was legally half mine. Robert had left it to me. David's name was on the deed only as a beneficiary after me. He had no right to sell it without my consent. The lawyer said we could fight the sale. It would be messy, but we could likely reverse it. I thought about it. I thought about forcing my way back into that little wooden house. I thought about the legal war it would start with my own son. I thought about winning the house, but losing my son forever. And I knew I couldn't do it. I called David. It was a hard call. His voice cracked when he answered. "Mom?" We talked for an hour. It was the first real talk we'd had in years. I told him how I felt. Not with anger, but with a calm sadness. I told him about finding the papers, about the budget. I told him the beach house wasn't just a property. It was my last conversation with his father. He cried on the phone, big heaving sobs I hadn't heard since he was a child. "I'm so sorry, Mom. Chloe, She kept saying it was the smart move. For our family. I was stressed about money. I shut down. I thought it would be easier if we just handled it. I was a coward. He was right. He had been. But hearing him say, it loosened something tight in my chest. The lawyer says, I can fight the sale, David. There was a long silence. Then, a whisper. Will you? I looked out Clara's window at the quiet street. I thought of the waves. I thought of Robert. No, I said softly. I won't fight you. The money, half of it is mine. I'll take my half. You keep yours. For Leo's future. For your new house. Mom, I don't want the money. It's done, David, I said, my voice firm but gentle. The house is gone. But you are still my son. And Leo is my grandson. I don't want to lose you both over wood and nails and a view. He was silent, just breathing shakily. But I can't live with you anymore, I continued. That chapter is closed. I need my own space, my own life. I will always be your mother. But I won't be a line item on your budget. That was a year ago. I used my half of the money to buy a small, neat apartment near Clara. It has a balcony that faces a row of trees, not the ocean. But I've grown to love the way the leaves change with the seasons. It's my own. Every book on the shelf, every mug in the cupboard is there because I chose it. David and I are rebuilding. It's slow. There's a scar where the beach house was, and we both feel it. He comes to visit, sometimes with Leo, sometimes alone. Chloe has only come once. It was stiff and polite. There's no hatred there, just a deep, understood distance. She is his wife. She is Leo's mother. That is their family unit. And I have finally made peace with existing beside it, not inside it. The love hasn't vanished. It's just changed shape. When David visits now, he really sees me. He asks about my book club, about my new pottery class. He listens. It's not perfect, but it's honest. Sometimes, Leo will look at my ceramic seagull on the new balcony and say, Birdie, Nana. Yes, my love, I say, picking him up. It's from a special place by the water. We go water? He asks. Maybe one day, I whisper into his hair. I still miss the beach house. I miss Robert. I miss the family that once was. Grief isn't something you get over. It's something you learn to carry. And you learn to make room for new joys alongside it. My life is quieter now. Smaller, in a way. But it is mine. Every choice, every mistake, every quiet cup of coffee in the morning sunlight belongs to me. The lesson I learned is a hard one, but a true one. Love doesn't mean losing yourself. Being family doesn't mean erasing your own borders to fit into someone else's picture. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to step back, to find your own ground to stand on, even if that ground is far from the home you once knew. It's not about blame, it's about truth. My truth was that I had to stop being just a mother, a grandmother, a memory keeper. I had to remember how to be Evelyn. So, when my daughter-in-law told me to leave, and I smiled instead of crying, it wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a very hard, very quiet, but very real new one. A story where I finally came home to myself. And that, I've learned, is the only home that can never be sold.